All right. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Kapodash. I'm going to give double honors to the apostles of the GMS that rule of well, our beloved elders and teachers, the elders that guide us through the spirit of Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua. And peace, blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect, as consists of and makes up the house so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanic, Native Americans, West Indians, which makes up the house of the 12 tribes of Israel. And Lord's will be edified. And one thing about what Yahweh, tongue twister, what Yahweh Bashim Yahushua did between him and his people, which were the 12 tribes of Israel, was he gave us ordinances, statutes, and commandments, and ordinances that we could remember ourselves, remember our holy days, ultimately, and wherever we dwelt and amongst our captivity. One thing we're starting to learn is that we are indeed the house of the 12 tribes of Israel, so-called Negro, Latino, Hispanic, Native Americans, and pretty much we're coming back to a righteous path, the righteous way, to righteousness. We are starting to live again, going back to that breath of life being put back in us by this word. But 2/3 of our people have forgotten the way. And I say all this to say this: I have had, I want to say, a couple years prior, I was able to go to a couple museums and was able to see the atrocities of our people, so-called Judah, some so-called black people, which is the tribe of Judah, Gad, and I believe they had certain tribes up there, Issachar. And I took pictures, a lot of pictures, going through these museums, and pretty much I want to show some pictures, and I'm going to expound on certain atrocities happening on people. Because what you're seeing is, tension, you know, uh, racial hatred, separation, the how you say the waxing of coldness, the separation of Babylon the Great. But I say all this to say this: what do you expect? How how can you expect peace and warmth, comfortability, uh, order, structure, righteousness in a place where it was set up by blood, rape, rob, and murder and deceit? And then we all know, you go into the book of Lamentations, Baruch, and it's another one I can't remember, but it talks about how these nations, and starting with the so-called white man, have done the most atrocities on us, and expect us just to forgive and forget about it, to shut up, um, bite our tongue, and pretty much look forward to his promises that he swears that he's going to give us in every election, which he's never kept any of his promises. Every president have came with a um, speech implementing that they was going to do something for our people, and on the end, nothing was done. So this is why you see so-called blacks in the predicament that they're in today. You was a slave then, and you're not looking too good now. So we want to read a couple. Matter of fact, let me get Psalms 83. because this is what has happened. Esau has pretty much cut us off from being that nation. So Psalms 83 and 1, keep not thou silence, O power, Yahweh, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. And we understand going to those prophecies that, the so-called white man was going to take power, so I could take peace from the earth, come into power, and wear out the saints, and pretty much blaspheme, everything that's righteousness, ultimately destroying the Bible, trying to, the ways, the works, his people, the name, um, bring in a false people to go back into the land, which we know those are the Amalekites, but ultimately to deceive the whole world in this state of that, even going into the Pope with his Catholicism and wickedness and idolatry and wickedness, but he had deceived the world, and pretty much everybody has looked up to this devil as if he's the Most High himself. Going into Second Thessalonians, I want to say the fourth chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Either that's that Second Thessalonians, the second chapter, the fourth chapter. Continuing on, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, which is who? The Israelites, the true indeed biblical 12 tribes of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Because I'm going to continue on, because one thing, if we would have kept those ordinances, we would know that we were Hebrew Israelites, and that the so-called white man was the biblical Edomites in other nations, and we would pretty much know from the predicament that we were put in that we had the low end of the stick, and ultimately we would be praying and before redemption towards Yahweh Shah to redeem us. It said, they have said, come and let us cut them off and begin a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. But you don't hear that anymore. You hear Israeli, you hear, the Ishes, and you hear other names, but you don't hear Yasharallah, you don't hear Israel. You don't hear about the 10, northern kingdom. You don't hear about southern kingdom. They all dwelling amongst one. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. And it start off with saying the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab. So I say that to go into this. So it says Psalms 25. It says, let me see. No, that's not it. Revelation 12:1, Revelation Lock, Ecclesiastes 12:1. Remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Because what has happened is Esau being able to hide himself so many years, going into Sirach, the 12th chapter, on starting at the first Salaki, the 10th verse, going on down, it states, not to trust thy enemy. And unfortunately, we have looked at ourselves as enemies for so long. The devastations, the calamities, the rape, the rob, and also the bloodshed, the envy, the hatred, the murdering, the bloodshed, which has impacted us amongst our places that we dwell. Jake has been consumed in, this culture of death, which was bestowed upon us and we were taught. So pretty much our eyes won't be focused on Esau. Our focus will be pretty much focused on each other. So what has happened is, we lost our ordinances, we lost our ways. Like it says in Jeremiah 7:14, it talks about, we were going to lose everything about ourselves. And unfortunately, a remnant will stick around to, forewarn, bid, and teach and preach the gospel to the elect. And one thing you see to this day, Jake, wondering why Esau have not, pretty much loved them. they wonder why Esau have not treated them fairly or gave them any, equality, justice, or love. But you don't, and our people don't understand. You are a Hebrew Israelite, and they are Hebrew Edomites. We're not the same. We're not one. We're not equal. He's the devil. He's the unrighteous. He's the wicked. And we are the righteous. And this is the reason why the Lord kept ordinances and told us to keep certain things, and the Sabbath, etc. So we would know what's really going on. There's one particular scripture that I want, but I'm gonna jump around. So let me see something. Let me see. I'm gonna get this fringes. Numbers 15:39, and it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart and in your own eyes after which you used to go harming. Because ultimately, we were supposed to wear garments, fringes, etc. The borders are blue, but ultimately, we lost our way. And you were supposed to look upon your garment and your fringes and, remember Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, remember the names, remember our ordinances, So you won't pretty much get hit blindsided and look lost and look stupid as our people 2/3 do. So it says, Deuteronomy 5:15, and remember that thou was a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy power brought thee out of thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy power commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. But our people don't know about it, not too many our people really know about, the Sabbath day. Really the high holy righteous days. The Passover, what is the Purim, Day of Atonement, etc. You know. But majority of our people know about the holidays of America, which is constantly changing, turning, etc. So it says, let me see. Deuteronomy 4:39. Know therefore this day and consider it in thine heart that the Lord He is the power in heaven and above, and upon the earth beneath. There is none else. But our people believe that there's many gods and many ways, many philosophies, to be open-minded, accept everything, etc. Um, Let me see. I'm done with that. Let me see something real quick. So ordinances, it says, ordinances generally refers to prescribed rules, regulations, or rights. They can be divine commands like those given by, it says in the AI overview, by the Most High Yahweh to Israel. And we got to remember, when you read the Bible, it's specific. It talks about the history of our people, so-called Negro, Latino, Hispanic, Native Americans. Um, I think it was one particularly. Let me see. Ezekiel 20:19 and 20. I am the Lord your power. Walk in my statutes and keep my judgments and do them and hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Lord your power. So again, he gave us ordinances to remember him wherever we go and wherever we dwell. Let me see. On Psalms 119 and 160, the word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endure forever. It says, bear with me one moment. So, okay, let me get this real quick. So Deuteronomy 6, 6 and 7. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So this word is supposed to always be in you. So let me see something. One thing for certain too, there wouldn't be so much, bloody murder amongst our people if we knew the law, statutes, and commandments as well. Mark 12:31. And the second is like, namely this. Well, it tells you the first, thou shalt love thy God with all thy might and heart, roughly paraphrasing. The second is, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. Um, Joshua 1 and 8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then shalt thou have good success. But one of the reasons why our people are losing is because ultimately we're in our enemy's land, and we have forgotten to turn our back on Yahweh Shah. Ultimately, we have forgotten his way. Um, Let me see something. Deuteronomy 10, 12, and 13. And now, Israel, what doeth the Lord thy power require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy power, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy power with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good. One of the reasons why we're not doing good is what? We forgot our ordinances. Second Corinthians 6 and 14. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. 2/3, and ultimately how Christianity has said, to everybody. But you got to understand, this truth is not for everybody, and ultimately, this truth is not for all the Israel. So you have to, know what you're reading. You got to understand what's going on. You got to know, you know, um, the truth. The scripture, you should know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But it says, for what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness? And unfortunately, our people have become so lost with the ways of this world. Our people accept every damn thing, especially wickedness and evil. So, furthermore, um, I'm going to bring this out. You pretty much got the point. Let me see if I can find these images. Wait, one moment. So, how is this? So I found the pictures, but let me see. So all right. So I'm going to get this real quick. Little images. If you can see valuable property, you might not be able to see it the best. Matter of fact, let me see something. I got enough percentage. So it says valuable property. You can look at different different pictures I took from the museums. I'm gonna read it. So it says valuable property. This is in. I think it's going to say. I'm not sure. Planters viewed enslaved people as valuable property. A slave sold at about 10,000 times the price of a pound of cotton in 1830. Not too far ago. Not too far along. Cotton traded at around 9 cents a pound. So an enslaved human being sold, and you know he was talking about for $900. That's a lot of money during those times, man. By the 1830s, most planters refused to risk hiring out slaves, as had been a common practice during the frontier era. They particularly avoided allowing the slaves to work on dangerous projects like canal digging or levee work. So that's something right there. Hold on. It's a bunch of pictures I took. And then you wonder why there's so much tension here in America. Because you had things like this come about in actual and act in was real that happened on this land. It was never, you know, it was never a truce, never a payout, never a payback, never, how you say, um, basically, it was never a debt that was settled, a score that was never settled. It's just pretty much, you know, swept underneath the rug, a promise, a gift swept underneath the rug. I'm not giving it to them. I'm not giving it to those niggas or those slaves swept underneath the rug. Uh, let's give them something. 40 acres in the mill. Nah, we're not giving it to them. Sweeping it underneath the rug. Tell them niggas shut up and get back to work. Let's make certain the Constitution laws, which is really not for them. It's to really uh, deep downs for us. So when they turn into criminals, we can make them pretty much slaves again. So everything that these Edomites did, you know, our people pretty much forgot about it, and then they wonder why we're in the predicament that they're in. Um, they're still distraught that Esau don't like us. You had the Edomite woman calling the Jake kid a nigga. I mean, that's in them. They're fucking Edomites, man. That's your problem. You Jakes. That's Um, by the time you really remember and get it, it's gonna be far too late. The prophet's been out there forewarning our people for ever since going on from our apostles, on down. We've been forewarning our people these atrocities was about to start coming down. Like the scripture says, woe to you that be on the earth, because the devil is going to come down hard. Knowing that his time is very short. These Edomites have got their courage from DJ Trump, etc. And plus Esau, these Edomites are feeling the squeeze from their own brother Amalek. So these Edomites are they're ready to crash out, man. They're getting that old spirit back in them, that old good boy spirit in them. But it's you niggas, our people, is the ones that unfortunately you forgot, you forgot, you know, you forgot what's going on. You thought, if you just blot out the atrocities, and we, you got to blame our parents. Our parents were some bitch ass, soft pushovers, or grandparents, or cousins, or uncles, or aunties, and they pretty much they try to sweep things underneath the rug too. So that you can go to college and get money and ride along and get the American dream and live in peace with your wife and your children. But remember, think about it. How do you live good? How do you live extravagant? How do you live rich in your enemy's land? And that's what our people forgot, because ultimately you forgot that you were a Hebrew Israelite. You lost your way, you lost who you are, you lost who you were. You've been called black, you've been called Negro, nigger, Negro, Negroid, African American, African, colored boy, etc. Even you so-called Hispanics and Native Americans and you so-called Latinos, you was called by reproach, a byword, not your biblical name, and you fell for it. You took it and you ran with it, and you tried to pretty much uh, live peacefully, in the so-called white man's infrastructure, Christianity, Catholicism, his ways. But I mean, look at it now. You know, our people are done. If your grandparents didn't buy a house in the '70s or '80s, whatever, you're done. And even that is far fetched too, because you know, Jay keep thinking you're gonna buy a house and you're gonna just live peaceful, be able to. No, my man, they're building up around these homes, and the taxes, the personal property taxes are going up on these houses. You have old people in their 70s, 80s having to go back to work to just so they can pay taxes on the house annually and yearly. So the game is rigged for our people. But again, our people did not remember themselves and remember. And even the fact that we're out there in the house and the Bible is telling our people, this is the reason why you're suffering, the reason why you're going through what's going on, and the reason why these Edomites are really showing their ass to you is because it's not a black and white thing. It's not a black and white thing. You're a Hebrew Israelite, and they are the biblical Hebrew Edomites, and there are a long. It's been a long battle, hatred, disdain between Jacob and Esau, which goes back to the womb in Genesis. I want to say the 25th chapter. But again, our people far gone. So continuing on, let's see if I can get something that's pretty much to the point. Hold on, real quick, Slocky. So I'm reading something about the FBI. So let me see. Um, Slacking, man, so much. I'm just get some pictures. Hold on. You got this picture right here. I would really advise brothers and sisters as well tuning in. If you can get a chance, go to your nearest museum and just check out certain, things, the atrocities that happen amongst our people. So welcome home to Jim Crow. This is when Jake fought for America, and it says welcome home Jim Crow, and I'm gonna read it. So it says, Black veterans came home to a Mississippi that was just as segregated and oppressive as when they left. Ben Fielder put it bluntly, I was still just a nigger. Not an American soldier anymore, just a nigger. Whites harassed and even assaulted veterans who wore their uniforms. Black veterans returned home in segregated railroad cars because behind Jim Crow's Iron Curtain. In 1944, this is not long ago, Delta POW camps had used German prisoners to pick cotton. Blacks were shocked to learn that the Germans had been better treated than black-filled hands. On June 29, 1945, James Eastland, a Delta planter and Mississippi's junior senator, made a speech on the U.S. Senate floor in which he denied black contributions to the war effort. The Negro was an utter and dismal failure in combat in Europe. I assert that the Negro race is an inferior race. 2 weeks later, New York Senator Robert Wagner set the record straight by reading from the reports of American generals. But Eastland's words were heard loud and clear by white Mississippi voters and returning black GIs. So that's one. Let me see this real quick. All right, so I believe this, when I was in Mississippi, I went to that museum. So I think this is in the Mississippi Museum. So white mob attacks black children. The school's desegregation turned violent in Grenada on Monday, September 12, 1966, as black students walked to John Rundle High School and Lizzie Horn Elementary School on opening day. Roving white bands attacked them with chains, pipes, axe handles, and bullwhips. Some students made it inside while others fled to Bellflower Baptist Church for first aid. After school, the white mob again attacked. Children were whipped, battered, and bloodied, sending two to the hospital. The attacks continued on Tuesday as parents escorted their children. Lawmen looked on but did nothing. On Friday, in U.S. District Court, Judge Claude Clayton issued an injunction ordering city officials to protect black students. Governor Johnson sent state troopers in the ensuing days. Parents and the SCLC activists escorted students to and from school. Throughout the fall, black students and their parents were harassed. Segregation within the school led to a student walkout on October 24th. Police arrested some 200 students marching in protest. Young children were sent to city and county jails. Those over age 15 were sent to Parchman Penitentiary. So, some history, man. Some history. Let me see. Some shackles. Yeah, like I said, my advised brothers and sisters, whichever museums y'all have, to go check them out. Probably going to wrap this thing up. Probably gonna do a part two. But so many pictures I took. I have over hundreds and hundreds of pictures I took. I was just in there just snapping along. Um, yeah, we'll show this too. It's not a coincidence, right? A market crash and all the black banks were devastated. It's not a coincidence, man. So, oh yeah, let me show you this. Well, you might not be able to see. It says John Hartfield, June 26, 1919, Ellisville, Mississippi. It says John Hartfield was lynched for allegedly assaulting a white woman. 10,000 white men, women, and children gathered to watch his hanging. Um, yeah, this was actually in Mississippi. It says Ab Young, March 12, 1935, Sladen, Mississippi. A mob of 50 men lynched Young after he was accused of shooting a state highway worker. Forced to stand on a car with a noose around his neck, he was hung when it was driven out from under him. Let me see. Yeah, crazy, man. But I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Those who use out of five. With that, I'm gonna say shalom.